tonight. Shamima Begum loses her appeal to return to London. Her lawyers vow to fight on. She left Bethnal Green in 2015 to join so-called Islamic State and was later stripped of her citizenship. Today, a tribunal ruled the 23-year-old remains a risk to national security.
I think we have a responsibility. Ultimately, what happens? Does she sit there and fester and be a target for being radicalised? What do we do about all the other British people that are there?
More questions now over whether her school, the local authority or police could have done more to stop her going to Syria in the first place. Also ahead.
We're notifying you of our intention to kill you and your family.
Under investigation, chilling death threats from right-wing extremists made against academic and activist Dr. Shola Moshogbemunu. More travel misery. London's tube drivers plan a budget day strike next month. And the King and his cash, a very personal thank you from the monarch to an East London charity. Good evening. Her appeal to get her British citizenship back may have been rejected, but questions have again been raised about whether action could have been taken to prevent Shamima Begum from ever travelling to Syria. She was just 15 when she left her life in Bethnal Green to join so-called Islamic State group in 2015. Today, at the age of 23, the prospect of her ever leaving a detention camp in northern Syria dwindled even further. At a tribunal in London today, she was deemed to still be a national security risk, despite there being a credible case that she was trafficked. The judge also refocused attention on her school, the council and police services, and whether their duty to the then schoolgirl had been breached. With the latest, here's Carolyn Sim.
It is 8 years since Shamima Begum, once a London schoolgirl, left to join the so-called Islamic State. Now she's 23 and is once again declared a threat to national security. Returning her British citizenship is refused. But at today's tribunal hearing, questions were raised about the moral and political reasoning behind that.
And the implication, the outcome that we face is that no British child who has been trafficked outside the UK will be protected by the British state.
Shamima was just 15 when she left Bethnal Green with two friends, travelling through Turkey to Syria. It wasn't until 2019 that she resurfaced in a refugee camp and her British citizenship was taken away. In October that year, she appealed against the decision, but the Supreme Court overruled her in 2021, and today she lost again. The judge, however, acknowledged that this is a complex case which raises wider questions. He said the suspicion that Shamima may have been trafficked to Syria was credible and that it could be argued that the police, the local authorities and the school didn't do enough to prevent it. Andrew Wood was a counsellor in Tower Hamlets at the time Shamima fled.
We need a serious case review to dig into the details of what happened in 2014 and 2015 when these young girls started going to Syria, because there were 4 in total from Tower Hamlets, and then there were another 30 girls from Tower Hamlets who had their passports removed by the courts because there was a fear they might go as well.
Today, Tower Hamlets Council told us their work to prevent radicalisation was praised in their most recent Ofsted inspection in 2019. Shamima married an ISIS fighter. She gave birth to 3 babies who all died from malnourishment or disease, and she claimed to have wanted out.
I don't force anyone what they believe in.
Now, Dal Babu, who was a Met Police Chief Superintendent at the time, believes the UK should take her back.
Yeah, I think we have a responsibility. Ultimately, what happens? Does she sit there and fester and be a target for being radicalised? What do we do about all the other British people that are there who were born here, raised here and were groomed and radicalised by ISIS?
Even if she was failed by the authorities, today's decision stands, and Shamima Begum could spend the rest of her life in detention in a Syrian camp.
So, Carolyn, Shamima Begum's legal team say this isn't it. What are their legal options, though?
Well, in the words of her lawyers, this is nowhere near over. They said today they'll pursue every possible avenue to challenge this decision, but they haven't released any specific details of an appeal yet. They're now asking the Home Secretary to look at this case afresh, especially given the comments made by the judge at today's hearing. The Home Office, though, say they're pleased that the court has ruled against Begum. They say maintaining the safety and security of the UK is their priority. So for Shamima, this means she's left in limbo. Clearly, the government don't want her back, but her legal team do appear to have fresh hope of her chances at any future hearings.
All right, Carolyn, thank you. Next tonight, a political and women's activist who received a letter containing death threats to her and her family with racist language has told ITV News she will not be silenced. Dr Shola Moshogbamimu is one of 2 people who were targeted by a right-wing extremist group calling itself the National Action London Cell. The Met Police's Counter-Terrorism Command is now investigating. Antoine Allen reports.
A racist far-right death threat posted into activist Dr Shola's home for simply speaking out.
We are notifying you of our intention to kill you and your family.
Shola, these are some serious threats, not just to you, but to your children. Just how did you react to this?
Rage. I felt so angry when I read that. Like, how dare they? How dare you? By the time I got to the end of the letter, my forethought was, how do I protect my family?
The letter states it's from National Action, a terrorist group banned in 2016 for their racist ideology and glorification of violence.
I'm going to speak right now.
Dr Shola is a political activist and regular commentator on Good Morning Britain. The letter she received on Monday is littered with racial slurs and direct references to Dr Shola's campaigning.
It's because people like me are speaking the truth in fighting white supremacy.
Dr Shola believes the tone of British politics around institutional racism and immigration have re-energised far-right beliefs.
Using words like invasion to asylum seekers and refugees, especially those who come from ethnic minority backgrounds. It speaks directly to how British ethnic minorities are also treated.
India Willoughby, the UK's first transgender newsreader, also received a threatening letter. Just 2 years ago, a Metropolitan Police officer was sentenced for being a member of the banned group. But the problem goes beyond the capital. Figures show that nearly half of all counter-terrorism arrests in the year up to September 2022 were related to extreme right-wing terrorism.
Shola, you've received this letter to try and silence you, but if you were to give a message directly to the people that have sent this or to anyone that agrees with it, what would you say?
I think it's important for them to understand this. I will not be silenced, and I will not be silent. I am not the problem here. You are. This country, the United Kingdom, we love so much, and the greatness you believe this country has was created, added to, expanded on by people like me and the ancestors of people like me. We belong here.
The police are aware of the letters and the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command are investigating. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
2 men have been found guilty of a £1 million robbery plot in Woodford. Detectives found that Andrew Measle, seen here on the right, a specialist cash-in-transit driver and alleged victim, was in fact the inside man in the robbery. Stefano Cantaris from Epping pleaded guilty to conspiracy to steal. The man has pleaded not guilty to harassing former Health Secretary Matt Hancock. Giza Tarjani denied harassment charges, which claimed he pursued Mr Hancock on multiple occasions, including Westminster Underground Station. Campaigners have lost a bid to bring a High Court challenge against the Metropolitan Police over the force's investigation into Partygate. The former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, received a fixed penalty notice over a birthday party in the Cabinet Room in June 2020, but faced no further action over other gatherings covered by the Met's inquiry. Further upsetting details of highly offensive messages posted in a Met Police WhatsApp group have been read out at a disciplinary hearing today. Yesterday, we heard from TV star Katie Price after her disabled son Harvey became a target. Today, there were further admissions of racism, as well as one officer who admitted he was ashamed by the messages. The Morning Rags Martell's report contains details you may find upsetting.
They're the Met's misconduct messages. Private police WhatsApps exposing more racism and sexism within the force. This was day 2 of the internal misconduct hearing at the police's Empress building in West London. They're looking into 8 serving and former officers' texts to each other.
Come here, Harv, we're going to say hello.
Once again, Katie Price's son was mentioned in evidence. Police constables in the chat likened a mixed heritage officer to Harvey. The terms used next to his name were derogatory and unbroadcastable. One officer was even aware of the racist tone of the messages. "I've always got time for racism," he wrote on the WhatsApp group, and then adding, "If any of this got out, my job would be long ago."
The misconduct hearing summed up the messages as the most blatant racism. The chair remarking that what the police officers were posting was completely inappropriate and that none of the others in the WhatsApp group did anything about it.
The officers involved were part of the Safer Neighbourhoods team based in Bexley. 6 of the 8 have now resigned or left the force. The racist, misogynistic and homophobic discussions went on for 2 years. Former Police Sergeant Luke Allen now says he's ashamed of these unacceptable messages. Police officers typically have a dark sense of humour, he said, particularly those in positions of high stress. But this is not an excuse. In hindsight, I wouldn't be part of such an abhorrent culture. He continued, "I'm embarrassed by myself. Some of the content of the messages has made me feel physically sick. It was inappropriate and unprofessional." The misconduct hearing has now finished hearing evidence. The panel will return with a decision on Friday. Rags Martell, ITV News.
Well, attempts to rebuild the Met Police's image were being made in South London today with members of the black community. Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley met with 100 church and faith leaders in Brixton after many of them decided to turn their back on the force following decades of problems. Daniel Henry reports on the attempt to heal wounds.
Amen. All right.
London's top cop went to church today.
Put your hands together for the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police.
Sir Mark Rowley is the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, the man in charge of restoring the reputation of the police.
And tragically, the relationship with black communities is amongst the worst, if not the worst.
He set out his stall to a group of black church leaders, hoping to get them and the wider community on side following a series of scandals. Yvonne was in the audience. Her son Godwin was murdered in 2010. She says the time for action is long overdue.
You can say we're going to build trust. How? I want to go away looking at the practical activities, the things that, everyday things that we're going to engage in to build that trust. Fed up of hearing all the talking. We want actions, and we want it done. We want actions now. I think we've waited a long time. And personally, I'm not prepared to wait anymore.
Is there anything new that you're actually able to offer black communities in London? Because having sat in there, I didn't hear anything.
There's plenty new in that. We're talking about looking at different approaches to stop and search, looking at different approaches to training. There's a very new approach to being much more robust on standards so that we are zero tolerance at rooting out those who are undermining our integrity through racism, misogyny. There's an awful lot of new material in there.
Bishop John Francis chaired the conversation. He told me it's important to keep talking.
And I'll be honest, I remember growing up, we have now this law, stop and search. It was called sus law back in the day when I was, and so it feels like everything is repeating itself. But you know what, you can't change things from the outside. You have to get in. And so I'm trying to do everything I can, and if it fails, it fails. But I'm a man of faith. I believe that with me working hard and calling people to account, we should get some results.
This is about the relationship we have to make your community safer.
Sir Mark Rowley wants London's black communities to put their faith in him. But when so many have been found before, trust will take time. Daniel Henry, ITV News.
Still to come, we have the full weather forecast, plus the very personal touch from King Charles at a charity in East London. And we meet the Highgate actor who is fulfilling her dream by playing Miss Marple on stage. But first, more bad news for commuters in the capital as tube drivers have voted to go on strike next month. Members of the ASLEF union voted overwhelmingly in favour of further industrial action. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is at Russell Square Underground Station for us tonight. Simon, when exactly is this walkout taking place then?
Lucrezia, it's on Wednesday, March the 15th, the same day as the Chancellor's budget. And because it involves members of the drivers' union, ASLEF, it's likely to bring most or all of the tube network to a standstill. If there are no drivers, the trains can't run. It's as simple as that. As we know, there have been a number of strikes in the public sector over pay in recent weeks, but this one isn't about pay. It's about terms and conditions. It's not about pay on account of the fact that tube workers got an increase of more than 8% last year. But what they are angry about is a suggestion that their pensions might be reformed. The government ordered TfL to draw up options for revising the TfL pension scheme. And while TfL management says there are no concrete proposals, that doesn't satisfy the unions. The RMT has held 6 strikes over the issue, but this will be the first by ASLEF.
We are not asking for anything from management to improve conditions. We're not asking for extra pay. We're simply asking that if there are changes to be made, and we understand the financial pressure that TfL is under, those changes are made by agreement. The base problem is that the government is refusing to properly fund public transport in London.
We also learned today of the next strike by London ambulance workers, paramedics, drivers and control room staff. Members of Unison will walk out 2 weeks today.
All right, Simon and Russell Square, thank you. Now, it's one thing having a member of the royal family visit your organisation or charity, but just imagine if they then decided to send a cash donation from their personal bank account. Well, that is exactly what King Charles decided to do to show his support for the Felix project in East London today. Sam Holder was there.
More than 4,000 meals are made every single day in this kitchen, going to those who'd otherwise go hungry. The Felix project saves food that would normally be thrown away, all of it perfectly edible and in date, sometimes just because companies want to clear their stock rooms. It's an issue King Charles is so concerned about, he's made a sizable personal donation to the charity and was keen to meet the staff and volunteers who ensure Londoners in need get meals on their table.
All right, so what did the King think of the menu?
So we were making a vegetable and lentil tagine. When he came around, he was very interested. He asked us for the recipe. So I've got to type up a royal quality recipe so he can, I imagine, cook it himself, or at least get it cooked for him next time he wants to try a Felix meal.
A feast fit for a king, you could say.
The highest seal of approval one could ever hope for. A proud day.
The King has helped pay for 800 new freezers. They're being given to centres that receive some of the 12,000 tonnes of food the Felix project redistributes every year.
His Majesty the King has been talking about the circular economy and food waste and environmental issues for decades. He has been really passionate about it. So we were delighted when in 2022 he became a personal donor to the Felix project.
A growing problem that food banks are reporting is that users can't afford the energy bills to cook donated food. Meals made here can be eaten cold. But as the King was told by staff, demand far outstrips supply and manpower. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Showbiz now. And Miss Marple has been an iconic character that has been loved by Agatha Christie fans for generations, and our next guest is currently fulfilling a lifelong dream to play her on stage.
It was the wrong murder.
Who would want to kill Marina?
The poor woman must be terrified.
You'll know Susie Blake for her roles in Victoria Woods, As Seen on TV, Coronation Street and Mrs Brown Boys. Well, this week, the actor from Highgate is taking up the famous role of Miss Marple at the Rose Theatre in Kingston. I'm very pleased to say she joins us now alongside another star from the show, Jo McFadden. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for joining me this evening before you go on stage a bit later. Susie and Jo, this is a classic whodunit, isn't it? So what can you tell us, of course, without giving too much away?
Not very much.
Not very much. Well, there's 13 of us on stage, so there's a lovely big cast and lots of red herrings. And by the end, I've been told by people who've seen it, they don't want anyone to be guilty because they get to know them so well.
And care about us all.
They care about everybody, don't they?
Yeah, so, and it's a brilliant script by Rachel Wagstaff, isn't it? And a fantastic director, Philip Franks. So it's really lovely material, isn't it?
Yes, it's very meaty. It's not cartoon-like. It's not very simple. No, it's not like that. It's quite in-depth. You get to know the people very well. And wonderful music, wonderful set. And, as you said...
Great actors, and lovely actors as well. We've been on the road for 15 weeks and we're still quite fond of each other. We're still hanging out together, which is quite unusual. Yeah, we finish next week up in Aberdeen, and yeah, we're at the, as you say, at the Rose in Kingston this week, and it's going really, really well. Opened last night and had a great response. So yeah, get your tickets quick if you want to come in and see it.
It was very encouraging to hear that you're all still getting along so well. But Susie, tell me a bit about what this means to you to play Miss Marple, because this is a bit of a dream come true for you, isn't it?
When I was 10, I was watching Margaret Rutherford playing Miss Marple and absolutely loving her. And she's part of the reason I wanted to follow the family fortune into acting. I just thought it was such fun what she was doing. Larger than life, very right for that period. She wouldn't really be accepted so large as life now, I think. We've all got used to Joan Hickson and everything. So I'm sort of halfway between. I think I'm a little bit more approachable than Joan, but not quite as extreme as Margaret Rutherford. But I've always wanted to play this part, and so I'm having a lovely time.
And Susie, or Jo, if you'd like to answer this, we're seeing a bit of an Agatha Christie resurgence at the moment, aren't we, with the Kenneth Branagh movies as well. Something timeless, though, about the appeal that she has.
Yeah, it's so familiar to us. Like, you know, I grew up watching Murder, She Wrote, watching all those detective shows, and it's very much in the British psyche, that whodunit thing. But this, you know, there's a reason why she's the biggest selling novelist of all time. She just writes such brilliant characters and writes such brilliant women characters, and you know, that's so unusual, and that's why people take her to the heart so much, and that's why it's been so lovely working on this script that is so rich with Philip, our director, and kind of really mining out who all the characters were, and it's really sort of it's really brilliant material.
And everybody loves a mystery, and at the moment where we don't know what's going on in the world, it's so confusing. You know, it's just fantastic to have a conclusion. You know what's at the end. You're going to leave knowing what happened, and that's that. You can put it in the box. You're not left thinking, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. You know,
All will be right in the world by the end of the night.
Yeah.
All right, well, listen, guys, thank you so much for talking to us this evening, and we know that you are on stage. What time are you on stage tonight?
7:30, we better go get ready.
Minutes away. Well, listen, we'll let you get on with it. Susie Blake, Jo McFadden, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.
And just a reminder of the main headlines in London this evening. And Shamima Begum has lost her legal challenge against the decision to remove her British citizenship. And political activist Dr. Shola Moshogbamimu has received death threats from a right-wing extremist group calling itself the National Action London Cell. The Met Police's Counter-Terrorism Command is now investigating. Now, it's been pretty wet out there today, but are things going to improve for the rest of the week? Let's get the weather now with Shireen Jordan.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
A very good evening to you. It's been a largely cloudy day today. We did have a maximum temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, so holding on to double digits. I think cooler than where it was at the start of the week, but we are seeing temperatures back to where they should be for this time of year. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Thursday, I think a largely cloudy start to the day. The risk of 1 or 2 showery outbreaks of rain, but then I think brightening up to leave us with plenty of sunny spells in the afternoon and largely a dry day. For us here this evening, quite a lot of cloud around overnight. I think largely dry. Again, the risk of 1 or 2 showers moving in from the north and the west, but I think quite a mild night to come. Light winds coming from the north and temperatures staying in mid-single digits. A lot of cloud around, and that's keeping temperatures rather buoyant overnight, so a low of 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. A frost-free start then to Thursday morning, but quite a cloudy one. Once again, we could see a few showery outbreaks of rain throughout the course of the morning, but I think brightening up in the afternoon to give us plenty of sunny spells. The winds tomorrow moving round to more of a northeasterly, so quite a fresher feel to the day in those winds, but I think we could see a maximum of 10 degrees Celsius. As we head through tomorrow afternoon and into the evening, looking at the pressure chart, you can see we've got high pressure to the west of us. That's keeping things rather settled, largely dry, a lot of dry weather around. The winds fairly light, a little bit breezier tomorrow than they have been of late, and then heading into Friday, I think plenty of sunshine, certainly for the afternoon period after a rather cloudy start to the day. Your outlook then for the next few days, some sunny spells to come on Thursday and I think Friday afternoon, but feeling a little bit chillier into the weekend.
ITV London Weekday Weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
And that is all for now. We are back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Coming up, Mary with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye.